Welcome to the Austin Forum Upload, the podcast of the Austin Forum on Technology and Society. I'm Jay Boisseau, the Executive Director and founder of the Austin Forum on Technology and Society, and we are kicking off AI April. Every year, the Austin Forum focuses all of its events, podcasts, and posts on the topic of AI. And we've been doing this for a while, although this year seems particularly timely because of the rise of ChatGPT and LLMs and generative AI. So I have a great guest for you today. I'm very pleased to introduce Saurabh and Jay of Dell Technologies. Saurabh, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Jay, for having me into your Austin Technology Forum.
All right, before we dive into ChatGPT and LLMs and more general uses of AI, why don't you tell our listeners just a little bit about yourself in the context of AI?
Yeah, sure. So in the context of AI, I have around 15 years of experience, and I've been in this space for, my whole experience spans around data. The whole 16 years, I started as a data engineer, moved into information modeling, then did analytics, and last 7 years, I've been specifically focused in machine learning and deep learning. And in machine learning and deep learning, my journey started with recommendation systems, developing computer vision application for cancer research, semantic segmentation, and from there I moved into the space of multimodal image and text, and making decisions at the intersection of human and machine, where we develop intelligence to automate some of the human actions, which through intelligence as a services, and drive operational efficiency and improve customer experience. So that's has been my experience in the space of AI.
That's great. And I think that's amazing. And I think it will convince our listeners that we have the right speaker here to talk about some of the big picture things in AI. So, Saurabh, of course, everybody's interested in AI now. You've been doing it for 15 years, as you've said, but in late November, ChatGPT was released onto the world. And people have become fascinated with ChatGPT, with things like Stable Diffusion and Midjourney, and basically with generative AI for text or images or sound overall. So maybe we talk about that just a little bit in this recent surge of interest in AI before we get into some of the broader advances in AI and how they're shaping our companies and organizations and society. So ChatGPT, are you a fan?
I to be honest, I like the way they have brought in the conversational system into mainstream. Yes, it is not perfect and it has issues of sentience, it has issues of hallucination, but yes, as a product, from an idea perspective, I think the idea was already there with the introduction of transformers, with the introduction of human loop in the feedback, and then ChatGPT came only after a series of development in language models that has happened, not just by OpenAI, but a lot of contribution has been from Meta, from Google, from DeepMind. So yes, it's been great. But what ChatGPT brought to us was it completely changed the game of human-computer interaction through natural language interface and generation. And the way they have aligned the models with the human feedback, that has improved the data generating capability of a tool. And that, I believe, is a game changer. The whole experience of the human computer interface is revolutionized with the introduction of ChatGPT.
Yeah, I agree. I love AI, of course, and do some work in it myself, but I can't say I'm overwhelmed by ChatGPT's quality because, every time I try to make it create something new and fun, it's great. But when I try to make it create something long and fact-based, I always find errors in it. It's about 80 or 90% right. And then I have to fix a few things if I'm going to use it, which I've ended up never using anything that I've created of ChatGPT except an interview of ChatGPT of itself, which we published in the Austin Forum blog. But I am completely impressed, on the other hand, by natural language processing and how far we've come and how advanced the large language models, or LLMs, have become in being able to carry on dialogue with people. For years, I've said the one way we're going to get everybody to use computing is when nobody has to learn how to use computing and they can just speak, because we all know how to talk, but some people are freaked out by mouses, keyboards and mice. And and menus and things like that. But the NLP capabilities are just fascinating now.
Absolutely. I mean, it's mind blowing. I mean, I would say they have they have cracked the process around data generation. See, this is a very interesting thing that I was reading about text, and I think that's the game changer. If you see how we viewed language models. I mean, when I think the first paper I read about language model was way back by Andrew Ng in early 2000, when they talk about how the next word prediction can be done based on the learning of the context of the past few words, and there was a probabilistic model to that. But the way the language model has evolved over a period of time, I think there is a very interesting thought process that they have shown us, is that they have shown us that language model is not just a statistical output of a statistical regularity, but
Right.
it is also about the projection of the world in the space of text. I'll try to explain this further. I mean, we do talk about, I've read some papers where people talk about that, okay, you need multimodality to maybe reason about the world, and that is one of the gap that today we talk about in language models. But the way these large language models have done is that with the amount of computing and data, they're seeing the world from the lenses of text. And when they see from the lenses of text, I think they validate the assumption that as long as it's not just about learning the context, but it is also about learning the process in which the text has been created. So the process in which we humans interact, the process and the environment in which we live. I think with the new models, they have done a fantastic job in learning that process, the concept, the ideas that generate the text. And I think that is fascinating to me. And that has enabled these models to learn about the world in a very unsupervised manner. They learn the representation of the world from high dimensional vectors. And that's really the game changing aspect that I see with these large language models.
So we agree that, you know, these large language models are fascinating and they're giving us some incredible capabilities via ChatGPT and many other tools. We should make it clear that there's many large language models and it's not just ChatGPT. And there's also a set of generative AI tools for images and things that are fascinating. But actually, maybe we should stop and talk about that a little bit. Have you been tracking the developments in generative AI for images like Stable Diffusion and Midjourney and other packages like that?
Yeah, I mean, I was very interested when Clip came, and I think Clip was a very interesting moment for generative modeling using contrastive learning. And then after Clip, DALL-E 2 came, right? And after DALL-E 2 is when, if my memory is correct, Stable Diffusion, Stability.ai came with Stable Diffusion paper. Now with the Stable Diffusion, the biggest impact that I see that it will have in the medical space. I mean, again, we talk about creating art and text. I mean, it can create music, it can do a number of stuff. But I feel, especially in the space of medical imaging, it is going to have tremendous impact, because with so little data in that space, in the past, I was working with some of the lung heart data, and we found that it was very hard to have those data sets labeled. Now it is going to create so much of synthetic data in that space through Stable Diffusion that it is going to have enormous. I think the whole process of intelligence in medical imaging is going to accelerate with this. However, it will also end up creating a lot of human generated art through machine. Now again, that is again a different question. It again creates a different set of questions in front of us, like how do we see the future of art, or is it really ethical? So it introduces a lot of interesting questions about how machines can be used in art generation. But yeah, I mean, I've been completely blown away with Stable Diffusion success. And the most interesting part that I see is that through prompts, if we can bring the ideas of image generation and text generation together, then it is going to have tremendous impact in robotics. I'm not sure if companies are actually working and thinking in that direction, but I see the impact of digital humans that we can have in the education sector. If you see, there are, I mean, more than billion students around the world, and we do not have teachers teaching them. So this can be a technology through which we can combine both stable diffusion and language generation, generative models, and we can build human design courses through teaching courses where students in the very remote area can be given a human like persona experience. And I think that is something i'm I'm more excited about. The application, yes, art is interesting, but if I have to summarize, the application in medical imaging and the application and impact it can have with digital humans, especially in the education sector. While digital humans can be implemented in many places, it can be implemented, it can be there in the kiosk in a mobile shop, or a kiosk in a healthcare. But the bigger impact that I see is in the education sector, in training sector, where we can train, reskill humans at a very fast rate. And today, specialist trainers, it's very hard to find.
Saurabh, that is a great point. There's a lot of concern these days, especially the last, well, roughly 4 months since ChatGPT came out, about will AI, destroy lots of jobs, and what do people do? And you just gave a good counter to that. And certainly ChatGPT and the like will kill some number of jobs, but will create many new jobs. And you just pointed out, create new education opportunities so that more people are upskilled into new jobs and the new era, the new evolution of jobs that comes from all this. So that's a great point. I also really appreciate you making that point of, large language models are great. Image generation models are great, but you can combine these things to make even more powerful things, like a digital human that could be an instructor for a class that can interact with the class because of the large language model, but can look like a human, and thus people's own brain circuitry for recognizing humans and relating to humans kicks in, and they feel like they're being taught more like a human by a human, even though it's AI generated. And that's a great point. I hadn't really thought about that. Thanks for sharing that. I promised at the beginning of the podcast, we talk a bit more generally. ChatGPT and LLMs and generative AI is all the hype right now. But you and I both know that, the ideas of artificially intelligent machines have been around as long as actually longer than such machines have been around. There have been theoretical posings and musings about creating machines that could think like people. Then we had early computers, and the term AI was first used less than a decade after the first digital computers were invented. So it's a term that's been around since the 1950s, but it's really been in the last decade or so that AI has started that so-called hockey stick uptick in popularity, adoption, and usage. Why don't you share with our listeners what caused that uptick, data computing algorithms, et cetera?
Yeah, so I see, the way I see, especially the impact of deep learning in this space, in the success of AI since 2012 with ImageNet and AlexNet broke out, right? But I feel the biggest usage of cluster of computing is deep learning. If you see in the past, how we were using cluster of computers. We used distributed computing to store data, or we used distributed computing to do physics simulation. But we never really used it for any kind of task which can develop intelligence. And the way I see with deep neural net, especially the bigger neural net, especially the bigger, I would say, neural networks, see the way they have used computers to scale the number of layers and ability to develop an algorithm which can predict the representation of the data. I think that is making all the difference, right? That is where, and see, the way I see prediction is like a compression problem. And as long as you can represent, in case of pixel, you try and use the pixels to represent the next set of pixels. Predict the next set of pixels. And similarly, in language models, you represent the language as token of text, and token of text as vector high dimensional vector representation, and then you predict the next set of text. I think this is all possible because of our abilities to train deep neural network in large cluster of computers. So I think the impact of computing have had significant progress in the ideas of AI with our abilities to train deep neural network. I think that was missing in late 90s and early 2000. We were not just, I think the algorithm still exists. CNN still exists in late 90s. Jan LeCun had used it in handwriting digit classification and stuff like that. But it was never used in the manner in which it started being used in 2012. So the use of computing, the use of GPUs in ability to train the end-to-end network, I think it opened doors about all set of new ways of thinking about how to use computing to make discoveries. I think that has a tremendous impact. And the other thing was, post the internet era, the rate at which data got generated.
Yeah.
So I think both got both got married together at the very right time to make all this happen. And after 2012, it's been a non-stopping progress in last 12 years, and we have seen progress in every field. Whether it is whether it is language, whether it is speech, whether it is vision, and now it is getting into every industry.
That is a great detailed overview of that. I'm going to try to break some of that down for our listeners that may be less familiar with some of the terms you used, and you can then correct me if I mischaracterize what you're saying. But we've always used mathematics to explain data from the time we all in school did y equals mx plus b to find the slope of a line. Yeah. But as we've developed newer statistical and then machine learning, and then these new deep learning techniques based on mathematical formulations called deep neural nets, we've been able to analyze very complex data, including unstructured data like text and images and sound, in more meaningful ways, in ways that allow this deep neural network-based software to find patterns and make predictions and classifications that we never could have done before. And I'm really glad you brought up the deep learning and the use of deep neural networks, because that underpins almost all of the big advances in AI now. What our listeners may not know is AI is a very general term, and there's other branches of AI. Some of our listeners may remember control system from the 80s, where were basically big nested if then else statements and whatnot. But now we're using these machine learning and deep learning techniques, these deep learning techniques based on neural nets as the mathematical formulation to ingest the data and find the patterns. And that really underlies most of the advances in seemingly very different kinds of AI, right? Like from autonomous vehicles to ChatGPT to image classifiers to whatever. It's almost all based on these deep neural nets now, right?
Yes. Everywhere. I think deep neural net is everywhere. We start our day, and from Google search to using an Uber to doing your shopping, all your day-to-day decisions are made by this functional approximated algorithms.
Yeah. We're going to teach an AI workshop as part of the Austin Forum programming. It won't be here in AI April, probably in the summer, but we'll really delve into these things. So if any of our listeners are in Austin, or if we teach it online, they'll be able to do it from anywhere. But we really want our audience to understand a little bit more about deep learning and be able to use some pre-formed tools. No one's going to be asked to develop a neural network, but given a code, an application based on neural nets, train it to do something. And so we're really looking forward to delivering that class. Let's talk though now about enterprise and companies and organizations. They're all excited about ChatGPT. Some are concerned about it. Some are experimenting with it. Some are already to the point of dismissing its utility for their particular needs. But again, that's just a subset of all the things AI can do. Where are you in your role at Dell Technologies seeing customers of very different types have success with AI?
So the success of AI that I have in the past have seen in different kinds of problem. Like I would say, one of the problem is in the space of OCR. These days in business application, we have a big team doing data entry, and this no human enjoys entering data throughout the day. So this is one problem where I see AI is able to accelerate digitization, and I mean, we have solved some problems in this space where we have used the ideas of image and text embeddings, combined it, and tried to solve it end to end through a deep neural network. So this is one space. The other space is customer service. Customer service has many kinds of problems, from a question answering system to a conversation system, right? So that is another space where it is going to help our customers a lot in finding answers quickly. These are the two spaces that I have usually used. The other spaces in the business world is your ability to forecast, right? And I've seen many problems in this space of time series forecasting, which these days uses intelligence developed out of deep learning or graph neural networks. It is used these days a lot to find similarities between the data, find the similarities between the patterns, and then use that to actually extrapolate and use it to do time series forecasting, anomaly detection, fraud detection. So these are the common kinds of problem in my tenure that I have used in my customer applications. But if I see in general as a customer, then I see every industry that we operate today, they need intelligence. And the way the intelligence can be developed, you have to use some level of AI into your digital systems. And with the vast amount of data getting generated, with so many reports and so many analytics at the fingertips in front of us at the click of mouse, how do we use those analytics? Now, all these analytics can be used into AI systems where a lot of decision making and intelligence can be made available, where customers can be more ahead of curve, and they can make a very faster and quick decisions and very well informed decisions.
Those are great examples. And, I was thinking in my mind, I wonder which ones he's going to list here. Because of course I have a list in my own head of where we're seeing enterprise customers do this. And you hit essentially all of them. We're seeing it in chatbots for customer service, leveraging NLP technologies. We're seeing it in image classification, like in medical fields, being able to identify a proto-tumor long before it becomes a tumor by having enough scans of healthy people and of people that eventually form tumors, and being able to do amazing things in medical image analysis and other forms of image analysis.
Yeah.
We're seeing it in video analytics, and the ability to do things that leads to hopefully one day autonomous vehicles. You mentioned the anomaly and fraud detection, and I love that one, because we've all probably experienced a time when our credit card company has called us and said, "Is this really you?" And you're like, "Well, of course it's me. Who would it be?" But they're running algorithms in the background looking for peculiar purchasing patterns. And what I've noticed in those is I get far fewer of those calls. In fact, I don't remember the last time I had one, as the AI techniques have gotten better and better at understanding consumer behavior and the variances that may occur in it. And the one I'll add to your list is recommendation engines.
Yeah,
I've been amazed at how much better recommendation engines have gotten. For example, in Amazon, and it's actually not good for me because I already buy too much stuff from Amazon anyway, but my God, the recommendations have gotten really good and compelling. And you have enough data, you can find these subtle patterns between people who don't even think they buy the same things or see purchasing the same way. But these recommendation engines are really powerful too, aren't they?
Yes, search ranking and recommendation has completely changed the game. I mean, the way we shop around, the way we make our day-to-day decisions, and AI is playing a central role in that. I fully agree with you.
Yeah, it's interesting how much we use AI in our daily life and don't even realize it. Like when we talk to Siri on our Apple devices, or Hey Google on our Google devices, or we talk to our Amazon Alexa Echo devices, we're using AI. It's using NLP. Or if you use your autonomous driving mode in your Tesla, of which I have one, and I encourage you to keep your hands on the wheel based on the current state, using AI in that. When you get the Netflix or Amazon recommendation. So people are benefiting from it all day, but these are really powerful in the back end for the companies that are providing this. And if they can even change consumer behavior by 1%, if they're $1 billion company, turns out 1% is a lot of revenue. So they're seeing some good success there. And of course, in a future installment, we'll probably talk about some of the national security and defense implications of AI. I'm going to close today's podcast, though, with two fun things. One, I'm going to ask you, what are you kind of expecting as the next fun AI tool that may emerge that really captivates people? And the other is, what is the maybe less consumer oriented, but what are you really looking forward to in the ongoing evolution of AI that we can't do yet, but that you're excited about us being able to do in 5 or 10 or 50 years? So let's start with the sort of daily life consumer level. What are you excited about? Do you see anything coming that's going to, be like ChatGPT or Midjourney, or even any exciting evolution in those?
I think digital human is going to have a lot of role in our daily lives. I mean, today we interact with automated systems, or even we talk about chatbots, or even the best example is ChatGPT, right? We get answers to the questions, but there is no emotion persona involved into that. I think the next level of user experience will be where we will get the experience of a human from the way we will interact with computers. I think that's going to change a lot of game, and in fact, it will have a lot of impact in. I mean, I was just reading a report long back that I think after some point in time in Japan, there will be a lot of old people, right? And they will not have a lot of people around to take care because they don't have kids, right? And I think a technology like digital human can help us, can help a lot of people in their loneliness. I don't know if
Yes,
people are
agreed.
trying to solve this problem,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't think people talk about it. But I see this is very common in many places. We have everything, but we might be lonely, we might feel alone, and I think digital humans, once they develop the emotional aspect of it, which I think will happen at some point in time, it is going to be a huge human machine partnership that will drive our progress. So I am very hopeful, and I want that to be developed, and it will also help us with a lot of things. I mean, we have to do everything on our own, and especially in Western countries, you don't have domestic help. So I see that as a tool which can augment our lives and just make it better. So I'm very excited and just waiting for that moment to come. And I think ChatGPT is just the start of it.
I couldn't agree with you more. There's plenty of studies now that are finding the correlations between loneliness and health issues and longevity and such, and the ability to create emotion feeling or even simulating synthetic humans may be a cure, or at least a partial cure, for some of the loneliness that some people experience. I'm really glad you brought that up. And of course, one of our AI April events this month is a showing of the 10-year-old movie Her with Joaquin Phoenix, which suddenly, in the era of ChatGPT, and with what you just said about emotion and sentiment, suddenly seems a lot closer than maybe it did. And I'm very pleased that you're going to be one of our panelists to answer questions after we showed that movie. So if this podcast comes out before that, I hope listeners will sign up for that. And we're going to try to stream that Q&A so that people who aren't there for the movie can also see the panel Q&A, where you and your colleagues are going to analyze where we are in natural language processing, where we aren't yet in artificial general intelligence, but where we might get to with adding emotion and sentiment analysis into AI. So thank you for all that. I'm going to say that the thing that I'm most excited about for the future, autonomous cars are an obvious one. I really would love for my car to safely be able to get me from any point to any other point under any conditions, because that's wasted time if I'm driving, and I could be productive or entertained if I'm not. But I think my long-term one is probably intelligent robots. And it sort of ties to your digital human one in a way, but the ability to have robots that eventually have the dexterity and decision-making, at least in certain areas of manufacturing, of hazardous materials removals, of dealing with unsafe situations and such, so that humans aren't put at risk. And we've got highly durable, highly capable robots that, at least for certain sets of tasks, can reason through it every bit as well as a human, that have enough robotic advancements in flexibility and touch and sensitivity. I'm really excited about the merger of AI and robotics. We're a long way from there on the robotic side, not just the AI side, but that's a tremendous potential one. Saurabh, you got any other final comments you want to make for this podcast about your thoughts on AI and where we are now or where we're going?
Yeah, I think we are interested. We are getting into a very interesting space with I mean, I know we have solved the unsupervised learning problem completely. We are entering into a space where natural language generation looks to be a very close to solved problem now. What I'm excited about is how far have we gone in our ability for machines to reason the way human does. I think reasoning is an aspect, or fact checking, we call it. I think that's an aspect where I'm very interested upon to see, like, can we understand what is facts and what is not in the natural language. I think that's an area I'm very excited about. I'll just give you an example. A couple of days back, I trained a llama model, and I was trying to throw some questions of probability, some questions of 6 standard mathematics, and it was able to solve. But the moment I gave a conditional probability question with like, okay, there are 3 balls, 5 red, 5 green, and then there are 3 bags we put out, and something which involves multi-step reasoning, it did not. So I'm more excited about language models capability where it can solve the problem of reasoning. The second problem that I think where I'm very excited upon is how the scaling of those models happen. Right now, training of these models are having a lot of impact on climate, right? So that is another area where I think a lot of work is being happening on how can we train these bigger models with less parameters. And I think that would be a game-changing piece, because all these big models, if you want to do inferencing in your laptop, we just can't do it. So that means the power of all these technologies it will be in the hands of critical few. And I think that's a risk I see in this society. I want every individual, the democratization of AI should happen. And I think that is an area where a lot of progress is happening, where people, I think 2 years from now, everybody will be able to train a large language model on their own machine. And I think that will be very exciting time, because it will open a lot of different applications, a lot of different avenues, and I'm just waiting for that moment. And I see a lot of action every week. So many papers are coming in the direction of computing of large language models. I would say scaling laws. I'm actually excited about that space.
Saurabh, I can't imagine a better closing message than that. We're the Austin Forum on Technology and Society, and you just closed with a great statement about a near future in which everybody can train large language models instead of a select few, and that the increased capability that will bring to society. So thank you for that closing point. I'm so glad I asked that question. And more importantly, thank you for sharing your experience and expertise and insights with our Austin Forum audience. It's been great to have you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jay, for having me part of it.
And we look forward to you being a friend of the Austin Forum and coming back. Looking forward to the event coming up in a week or so on her, and we will talk to you again soon.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Austin Forum Upload. You can listen to additional episodes and check out a schedule of our monthly in-person events at austinforum.org. The Upload is a production of the Austin Forum on Technology and Society, a nonprofit organization here in Austin, Texas.